Hi, welcome to the Service Dog Handler Chat. This is our August chat and it's our open one. So we're just going to be talking a bit tonight on mechanics and some of the best tips and tricks that we have to fine tune our mechanics. And so with that, we're going to kind of just rush through some tips. We're not going to give the full details, but we want to get as many tips in there as possible. You're welcome to type them in the chat or raise your hand when you want to do a tip. I'm going to start out real quickly with just one that I think is important, and that's timing based on distractions. And so what I mean by that is when we're in a very distracting environment, we need to have much better timing if we want our dogs to respond versus if we're in a slower distraction environment. So in my puppy class, my assistant and I play this fun little game to get everybody laughing at us and how we look so absurd. And so it's basically one of us stands there with a frisbee that we drop and the other one tries to catch it. And we start out setting up for success. And I think we start up setting up for failure, but no matter which way you start it. So if you're setting up for failure, you have somebody in the room say drop because you have absolutely no control, which means we do set up for success first. So I tell her to drop, and usually I catch it the very first time because I told my assistant to drop, right? I'm in control of the timing of when it drops. And then to make it slightly harder, instead of me telling my assistant when to drop, I let her choose when to drop. And then she says a marker word when she's dropping. Like she'll say the word drop or something. And she's dropping, right? And then to set up really bad for failure, which would be a high distraction environment, is we have somebody else in the classroom tell my assistant when to drop. So yes, I hear them say drop, but that doesn't mean her timing is going to be right on when she actually drops it or my ability to catch it. So when you go through those different stages, it can make it really easy to see that if you have control over everything in the environment, then it's really easy to get your timing on right where you want it. And if you have control of a little bit of the environment, but not the whole environment, then your timing is going to be a little bit more challenging. And so your dog's response time is also going to be more challenging. And if you have absolutely no control over your environment, then it's going to be even harder for you to get your timing placed in the right place. So then it's going to be even harder for your dog to be able to also respond in the time frame that we want them to respond. So put that as I train in my house first, pretty controlled environment. And most trainers say train at home first. And so there I can control everything. And therefore I have great timing and the dog can learn more rapidly. And then I train out in the backyard where things maybe are a little bit more distracting, but still pretty controlled. But so it's a little bit harder. And then we have to then generalize again into more distracting environments because it gets even harder for the dog and for you to cue the behavior based on the stimuli you're seeing in that environment just because it's distracting. So that's my top tip. Cindy, I know you have a tip about mechanics.
I have several, but I'm going to go with setting your dog up to succeed as much as you possibly can. And not in every way. You want to make, especially when you're teaching a new behavior, you want to give that dog every chance to succeed because they actually learn better if they are given the opportunity to succeed and taught what is expected before adding in the distractions. You want to make, so if you're teaching a simple sit, which it's not simple, but it's one of the most common things that are first taught to dogs. Before that dog is going to be super successful in every environment, you need to do it, proof it, generalize it, whatever the word is you choose. You need that sit reliable in your living room. You need that sit reliable in your kitchen with not much, with the dishwasher off. You need it reliable in your bedroom. You need it reliable in your backyard. You need it reliable in your front yard, in your driveway, on the street, on the sidewalk, and gradually increase those distractions so that your dog, and then reteach that behavior so your dog understands that, okay, while I know the sit in the house, I don't know the sit in the driveway, and I really need some coaching on how to get that sit. And we want the dog to be successful as we're teaching these behaviors, because they will learn the behavior. Hannah Brannigan has done a whole blog post or their podcast on setting your dog up for success, and how setting them up with options to fail, or the ability to make the choice to fail really hampers their learning. There's been studies on this, and it's something that we really, really need to keep in mind when we're doing our mechanics. It may not seem like as much of a mechanical issue as it is, but everything that goes into rewarding behavior, to getting the behavior you want and rewarding that behavior, is a mechanical issue. And then Penny, did you have another one?
I do. Mine is one I say all the time. My clients hear it. Is choose your environment wisely, and that kind of plays off what you were just talking about in the generalization. But and another key one that a lot of people talk about is choose the time of day that you're going in an environment so that it's slower. For me, I want to look at choosing the environment that is been built up based on your previous history. So like Roz right now is working on restaurant training. And so choosing the environments where she's doing those training, I have not really a laid out plan that I like to do, but kind of a graduated plan that I like to do for, first of all, starting at home like always. And I do practice meal training at the training center all the time. Then I like to start slowly with either a coffee shop or ice cream shop, because you're slowly building up those skills in a place where you're only there for maybe 5-10 minutes, it's a short duration. And then building it into, like today, she did her first ever fast food restaurant. And I want her solid in each stage of the game before we move on to the next one. And so the next one would be like a sit down restaurant where wait staff comes to the table kind of thing. And all of these you're doing in super quiet environments at a slow time of day to begin with, and building it up till you can go at a busy time of day in that environment before you move on to the next environment. So that goes with no matter what you're training. If you're training basic obedience like sit down, stay calm, or if you're training advanced skills, it's the same thing. You need to pick the environment you're going into. Even if you're just taking your dog out on a sniff about walk, you need to choose your environment wisely based on what you've already done, based on the distractions that are going to be there, and the volume of distractions that are going to be there. Anybody else got another one?
I do. So we often talk about markers or clickers or marker words, and a marker can be anything. It doesn't have to be a sound. It can be visual. It can be, although that's harder if your dog's not staring at you or has their back to you. It can be a touch. It can be many things, but be aware that just because one person uses a certain word, or they use a clicker, or they don't use they use a ballpoint pen, retractable pen that they click, or they use something that you're not using, doesn't mean that what you're using is inappropriate. There's times my dogs are both trained so that they have marker words, and they both have a minimum of 2 marker words. And then they also have reinforcer words. But it's important that especially if you have any kind of physical or cognitive limitations, like one of mine is I can't always get the words out in a timely manner. And if you notice how I speak, I often have pauses where I'm trying to get a word out. I sometimes cannot get the word out. And it's easier a lot of times for me just to use a clicker, even though that means I have to carry a clicker around. Sometimes it's easier just to take the clicker and use the clicker rather than a word. Whereas other people might be having an issue with fine motor movement and can't use a clicker as easily. And but it's important that you want to mark the behavior as close to when you're getting the exact behavior that you want as you possibly can. Otherwise, it can cause some pauses and delays and some issues with your training that aren't necessarily the end of the world. But like, I'd really like Nick to have snappier behaviors, but I don't know that I'm capable of getting the snappier behaviors because I can't get that snappier click or that snappier yes or nice out that other people can get. Anybody else?
Sorry, I have another one I want to do, Ashlyn's, but I wanted to address Julie's question in the chat first. And she says, what's the difference between a marker word and a reinforcer word? And so marker is what you're doing to mark the behavior, to say, yes, you're doing it right. Yes, keep going, or something like that, which is going to take me to Ashlyn's tip in just a minute. But so the marker word is doing the same thing as the clicker, the exact same thing. A reinforcement word is a word that you've built in to have value, as far as, like good boy, good dog. For Zul, I call him my rock star. What a rock star you are. And so he's had that paired with being a positive word. So it doesn't necessarily mean he just did the behavior I want. It means overall he's doing an awesome job. So that's kind of the difference there between a marker should be like, you only use a marker generally when you're teaching something new and you want to let the dog know that this behavior doing right at this moment is what I'm after. Whereas a reinforcement word, like I tell Azul, he's a rock star all the time when he's healing, and it has nothing to do with the fact that he's healing perfect right then. He just knows that when he hears that he's doing an awesome job at everything that's going on. So Ashlyn's
Penny,
tip
it could be something like clapping as well. It can be a gesture. It can be a noise. It could be making a noise with your hands. Some competitors will use clapping, because especially if they are high level competitors where they have an audience, because then when the audience claps, the dog gets reinforced for doing whatever they had just done.
Well, and that's what makes it hard for the marker or the reinforce, because your marker might be my reinforcement.
Correct.
So I could clap to say, yes, you got it right. Or I could clap to say, good job, congratulations. So I mean, it all depends on what you do. And I tended to use the word nice a lot when Azul was little as a marker word. That goes into Ashlyn's comment or Ashlyn's tip. So let me get that one out first. So Ashlyn's tip was have a word that means continue doing what you're doing, a continuation word. And so when Azul was younger, around even 4.5, 5 months old, we were starting to reinforce heel when he chose to do it. I wasn't asking him to heel. I wasn't luring him into it, but if he got into position on his own, he got reinforcement each and every time on our walks. And so I started when he would do it multiple times and, end up getting like 10 pieces of kibble in a row for staying there. I started using the word nice as like this is great. Let's keep going. How long can we keep going? Nice, 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 nice. Well, it had such an impact that he associated the word nice as the cue for heel. So pretty much now, if I say nice, he jumps into heel. Now he knows what the word heel means as well. But for a long time, my cue became walk nice, Matt, get into heel. And so it switched, like it originally started as a continuation marker word. You're doing it right, keep going. It transitioned into a cue word and, to cue the behavior I wanted. And now it has transitioned more into a reinforcement word, because if I just say the word nice on its own, then he knows he's doing a good job. So it's reinforcement. Whereas if I say walk nice, it's still a cue for heel. And if I say heel, it's a cue for heel. I don't use it so much as a marker anymore, but I occasionally do. So, and I do it more so, I think, with Roz as a marker word. I try to use either, for me, it's the word good, or it's the word yes. Usually, those are my two most common marker words. Sydney, do you have something on top of one of those, or in addition to that?
It really pays to charge up words that become reinforcers, or actions that become reinforcers, so that the dog knows, because you can't always carry a toy, and it's not always appropriate to play with a toy, especially with service dogs. But it pays to have some behaviors. Like one of Nick's favorite behaviors is to jump up on me. And it pays to have some behaviors like that, so that you can use reinforcers in situations where you can't use food or don't have food, where you can't pull out a tug and play tug. You want to be able to reinforce the behavior in a way that is appropriate for the situation. And the other thing to keep in mind with using play as a reinforcer, it's not always appropriate. I don't use it much with Nick because he is so high strung anyways. His excitement goes from 0 to 1,000 very quickly, and he does have a dimmer switch, but he easily gets so excited that even having his dimmer switch, it can be very difficult for him to bring that back down when I need him to bring his excitement down. So it's important to keep in mind what works, what your dog finds reinforcing, what is appropriate for the situation, and use those things so that you don't walk into Walmart and your dog is just all excited because you were just playing tug in the parking lot. So you want to be thinking about that, because Walmart is not the place to have your dog excited or wanting to play tug.
All right, I have one final tip, and then we're gonna wrap this up. So one of the best things that you can do to fine tune your mechanics when it comes to training your dog, training your service dog, either way, pet or service dog, is record your training sessions. So whether you're showing that to anybody or just watching it yourself, the act of actually playing back a video can let you know if you're marking something slow, or if you're missing something because it's happening slightly behind your back. Every single time I watch a video that I have recorded of a training session, I always go, oh, I missed that. I didn't see my dog offer that. I didn't see this. I didn't see that I just stepped on my dog's tail, which I happened to do on a recording earlier today. I stepped on my dog's tail. And I mean, that one I actually noticed and felt, but so just record your sessions at least once or twice a week, especially if you're trying to train something new. And even if you don't plan on sharing it and just want to watch it, it'll make a world of difference, and it'll help with confidence for you. And so with that, let's go ahead and say good night. Everybody have a good evening.
Okay, so canine coach Ashlyn said, good girl is a reinforcer for my two